I enjoy reading the writings of the late Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia. Sometimes I agree, sometimes I don't, but I always admire his writing. So I really enjoy the collection of his work published as The Essential Scalia in 2020. What I enjoy even more, because of the good example it sets for civil discourse, is the foreword in The Essential Scalia, written by his fellow Supreme Court Justice Elena Kagan. It's important to point out that Scalia and Kagan disagreed more often than not. If you follow the U.S. Supreme Court and enjoy labeling people, you would label Justice Scalia as conservative, probably very conservative, and you'd probably label Justice Kagan as equally liberal. So when Justice Kagan writes flatteringly about Justice Scalia, it's not a hidden agenda of selling her own point of view. It's acknowledging virtue in someone she disagrees with. Here's how Justice Kagan opens her foreword. In the 6 years Nino and I served together on the Supreme Court, I held to an unwavering rule. Whenever Nino circulated a new opinion, I would put aside whatever else I was doing to read it. Whether I expected to agree or disagree, I wanted to know immediately, not in a day or two, but right now, what Nino had to say. I wanted to dive into his inimitable writing style, to marvel at the power of his mind, and most important, to take the measure of his ideas. That's the end of that quote. Next, Justice Kagan goes on to give some examples of the writing style she admired so much, and then she writes, "But the style was not for the sake of style. It was always in the service of ideas. Nino loved ideas, thinking about them, talking about them, arguing about them, as well as writing about them. That love may explain why he found it so natural to befriend colleagues with whom he often disagreed. Yes, like me. Echo chambers, I suspect, bored him. It was the difference of opinion that enlivened conversation, sparked debate, and created opportunities for learning." Now, that's a lot of quotes from Justice Kagan. I apologize. Here's a little more, and then I'll give you some conclusions. Here's what she says. "I often ask myself how Nino would have reasoned through some legal problem. That exercise sometimes persuades me to come out the same way. Over the years, Nino convinced me of things I didn't first think, as I also did him. But the Nino test also makes my work better, even when, or especially when, I wind up disagreeing. I've written many of my opinions while imagining a miniature Nino sitting on my right shoulder. That miniature Nino has never gotten me to pull my punches. To the contrary, he's led me to work harder and dig deeper, to search for the arguments that can withstand his mighty riposts, to plug every hole in my analysis that he so gleefully finds. That Nino has upped my game as a judge, and I'll dare to speak for my colleagues by saying that Nino's peculiarly trenchant form of legal argument has done the same for the whole court." Now, she ends by saying this. "So, for sure, learn from the contents of this book, and equally challenge the contents of this book. Nino would have wanted you to, but above all else, enjoy them." Now, just think about that. Did you get the significance of this? I would call this the highest possible order of civil discourse. To identify somebody with a very different viewpoint from our own, about which we both feel strongly, and still be friends, still be honest with and challenge each other, still encourage the other to be honest with and challenge me, still pay a tribute to the intellect of this other person I disagree with, and to write that tribute with such elegance and sincerity, and to use the other person's arguments to battle test my own views and improve my own reasoning. I have to say, this is probably the best example I've seen yet of what we're trying to promote in the neutral ground. I wish I could say something as eloquent and as flattering about Justice Kagan as she did about Justice Scalia.